4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Racing World. This is a bit of a special edition featuring Hunter McElrea, who had a fantastic result last weekend in the Indy Pro Series races in New Jersey. So we decided that we'd do Hunter a show of his own, just for a bit of a change, and it gave us the chance to talk a little bit longer with Hunter about just what it's like in the whole Road to Indy series. I've been a great fan of Hunter's for quite some time, know his dad Andy and everything, but this is an unbiased opinion on this. This is about a guy, like so many other drivers before him, who has come through the Road to Indy ladder system. He started by winning the scholarship, got into USF 2000, is in Pro Indy now, and looks certain, we hope, to be in IndyLights next year. So it's a great way of being able to support this future talent. It doesn't matter which country you come from either. It could be from the Southern Hemisphere where we're from or the Northern Hemisphere. It's about the fact that this series produces talent for the future, and the ladder system is proven. So without further ado, let's catch up with Hunter. I spoke with him this morning via Zoom. Well, as promised here on Racing World, we've got another guest on the show, Hunter McElrea in the States. And of course, Hunter, fantastic weekend recently at New Jersey and Pro Indy. Just great to see 3 podium results and sort of total domination in that third race from you as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, DT. Firstly, it's good to be chatting with you. Obviously, I've known you for a long time, going back to the Elite Academy. So lots of cool things achieved and experienced since then. But New Jersey was for sure a really great weekend. Obviously 2 second places, 2 pole positions, and then a win by 12 seconds in the last race kind of sums it up really. Just for me, last year, New Jersey was a track where I had a really good test before, and then the race, for a few reasons, we kind of found out later we just didn't really have the results that we wanted. I had a 4th and a 5th. So it was like, I had unfinished business at this track. So to come back here and do that, or to come back there, I should say, and do what I did, certainly, I think, tick that box of the list for me. So yeah, great weekend. And obviously, quite happy with that.
One of the things for people that are watching the show or listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of those devices, you've been in the Road to Indy series now for 3 years. I remember seeing you in that very first year at IRP and places like that, and you went through the scholarship shootout to get there in the first place. What can you say to people about Road to Indy, assuming that they don't know anything about Road to Indy?
Yeah, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind junior, I guess, racing pyramid, you could say. In my situation, obviously, I started off, if you look at the start of my career, I started off racing South Island Formula Ford in an old 1991 Van Diemen, just with my granddad out the back of his trailer around the South Island of New Zealand. And, really started at the bottom at grassroots, which taught me everything I know. And then, managed to have some good success there and kind of kept progressing up the Formula Ford ranks to pretty much racing at the pinnacle of Formula Ford, or definitely racing at the pinnacle of Formula Ford, in my opinion, in the National Championship in Australia, which obviously has a lot of competition. Managed to become Australian National Champion in 2018 with Sonic Motor Racing Services, which was a really dominant year for me, which was great. And then from that, I got the Mazda Road to Indy shootout ticket at the time. They had a prize where if you won a certain national championship around the world, whether it be, winning the Formula Ford Festival in England, or in my case, the Australian Formula Ford Championship, or the Kiwi Formula Ford Championship, and a lot of other championships around the world, you would have the opportunity to go to Phoenix, Arizona, and compete in a shootout over 2 days where everyone drives the exact same car. And basically you're judged on, the main thing obviously is how fast you are, and which is ultimately what wins you the shootout. But you're also very assessed on outside the car of, how do you deal with sponsors? How are you in the media? And things like that. So for me, I was lucky enough to come away winning that shootout, which was huge for me because it really kind of burst me onto the American racing scene in the sense of I've got budget, $200,000 is about 2/3 the budget needed for USF 2000, which is a huge help. And then that really helped me get onto the road to Indy and establish myself and kind of take that budget, a chunk of the budget away that I didn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
So, through that, I met a great amount of people at Mazda, with the whole IMSA team they have, which unfortunately ends this year. But I met so many great contacts through that. And obviously I had a very good first year in US 1000 where I led the championship to the last race. Obviously, bad luck stopped me from winning that championship by a few points, which was hard to swallow. And the thing that was the hardest to swallow with not winning that championship, like I believe I should have, but that's racing,
Yep.
was the almost $400,000 US scholarship to Indy Pro 2000. And then obviously, if you win Indy Pro 2000, you get the $700,000 or $750,000 scholarship to IndyLights. And if you win IndyLights, you get 1 point something million to go to IndyCar to compete for 3 races, which includes Indy 500. So it's really one of a kind in the sense of you have a serious prize where you can legitimize it to sponsors. Like, look, if I can win the championship, I'm going to have this amount of money to move to the next level. And for me, being a direct benefit of that, it's really, really helped my career. And I'm very, very happy. Not only the fact that IndyCar has always been my main goal. Obviously, I want to be an Indy 500 winner and an IndyCar champion. Always have been. And that's the goal I'll always be pushing for. But to be in the road to Indy where you have a direct path to that. And if you do win, you're winning in front of IndyCar team owners and IndyCar race weekends and all these things, there's nothing quite like it. So to sum up the road to Indy in a nutshell, it really is, the road to Indy.
Yeah.
And if you want to be an IndyCar driver, it's where you need to be, for sure.
I know when we were with you that night at IRP, which seems an awful long time ago now, thanks very much, COVID. We spent a lot of time with Dan Anderson, incredibly passionate guy about his whole Road to Indy program and how he looks after every driver that comes through that series, has a Dan Anderson connection. But he kind of, to see his reaction when Rinus VeeKay did well at the Indy GP this year, just sums up the passion that guy has for what he's doing in terms of the Road to Indy series, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Anderson family, there's Michelle, his daughter as well, who is very involved with Road to Indy. Dan, they're great people and they have an incredible passion for the sport. And obviously the Road to Indy bringing drivers like me through. And it wouldn't really be there without them. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are involved and it takes a village, as anything successful does.
Mm.
But to know those guys and know the effort they've put in behind the scenes, especially last year when COVID hit, being able to get a season in like that, it wasn't ideal for anyone. And everyone can complain about how they've been affected by it, which is fair because everyone has been. But they are as badly affected by it too, because they're the ones that are having to, get all these events. And I know that, they really probably didn't really even make any money last year when maybe some people thought they did. They really made it happen and got a championship in and have the prize money there. And just to be able to have that opportunity, not only to race, but there's prize money. I got $3,000 worth of prize money from my pole positions last weekend. And it's just so cool that that's all being done by the Anderson family. So for sure, there's a lot of people to that makes it happen, but it all starts with the Anderson family, like you said, and they have a huge passion for what they do. So for guys like me, it's very appreciated.
Yeah, no, that was one thing I took away from spending that night with Dan was just, you could just see it straight away, the passion that he had, and then watching the races at IRP that night, he was totally fixated by them. So it's a fantastic thing to see, and it's proven formula with drivers that we've seen that have gone all the way through to IndyCar. So, I guess the next step for you really, and what people can be very proud of is the fact that, the next path of that would be IndyLights. And I know that there's discussions underway on that. And that would be a huge milestone in the journey of Hunter McElrea as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure. I've had a really, to be honest, awesome journey so far, from obviously going from New Zealand and competing in Formula Ford from NZ to Australia to obviously dipping my toe in the water here, and to be able to achieve what I have so far is awesome. But, my goal obviously is still to be an IndyCar. So, for me next year, for sure, the plan is to go to IndyLights. And, there's some things in the works right now where it's looking pretty possible. Obviously, budget is the limiting factor for that. So everyone, in my corner, including myself, is working extremely hard to try and make this happen. But, it's looking like a possibility right now, which is obviously very exciting. So for me, I'm just trying to keep doing what I'm doing, winning races, putting it on pole, and putting myself in a position to fight for championships like I always have been. And that's all I can do kind of on the track to help me off track. So for sure, if I can be an IndyLights car next year, it's one step closer to the goal. And it's a very exciting time for me. So I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. Obviously, like I said, it's a lot of hard work to be done still, but right now it's looking like it's going to be possible. So we'll see what happens. But for sure, I'm very excited for the future.
So I'll do the big public service announcement here for anyone who's listening and involved in watching the show or listening to the show. This is a guy that you need to support. So you listen to me right now. This is the guy that we're supporting in 2022. Hunter, just talking about IndyLights, how much of a step up in terms of the car physically and driver-wise is it from an Indy Pro car that you're currently in?
It's a lot. I mean, it's, just under 500 horsepower. And right now we're kind of just under 200 horsepower in the Indy Pro car. So double the horsepower, probably more than double the horsepower. Obviously they're heavier too, but, even from the USF 2000 to the Indy Pro 2000, physically they are a lot harder to drive. They've got a lot more aero, more power, a lot bigger tires. So things like steering inputs and G-forces on your upper body and steering force, it's all a lot more, longer race distances too. So everything is ramped up. And I obviously haven't driven an IndyLights car yet, but I do expect that to be another step up in physicality. So for me, it's been good to kind of get used to that added kind of effort, which, to be honest, was a lot more than what I was expecting from USF 2000 to Indy Pro. The physicality of it has always, or did kind of make me go, okay, wow, this is going to be a lot more work. So I have to put on a little bit more muscle and things like that. So I guess I can expect that in the IndyLights car for sure, because, double the horsepower, 6 seconds a lap faster, depending on the track. So a lot more effort is going to be required. So, I have kind of an idea of what it's going to be, but you really never know until you drive it. So I can just prepare the best I can, which, has been working so far. But for sure, I'm going to need to continue to ramp that up in every aspect. So I'm looking forward to hopefully trying it out.
I guess some of the aspect of that too is that the people that are around you right now in Indy Pro, some of those were around you in USF and potentially could be around you in IndyLights. So you start to know who's who, really, don't you, when you're looking at your racing competitors as well and how far you can push things with them on the circuit.
Right. I mean, it's obviously the level I'm racing at, it's very high, and everyone has won a championship or many races at a high level. You're really racing no one who isn't good.
Yeah.
To put it simply, you look at the guy who finishes last in the race or whoever it is, and you think, oh, they're finishing last, they might not be that good, but, they're sometimes 6/10 off and they're last. And obviously, no one wants to be last, but 6/10 of a second isn't that much. And everything is so fine in the sense of, 1/10 of a second is so much of time. And if you try to do that on a calculator, you can barely do it because it's so quick. If you just look, and that's the gaps we're talking about. It really kind of puts it into perspective. So, Braden Eves and Christian Rasmussen have been two rivals of mine for a long time now. Obviously, in USF 2000, we finished 1, 2, 3, and now Christian Rasmussen, Braden Eves, and myself are the three guys going into the final round in championship contention in Indy Pro 2000, first, second, and third again. So, I know all three of us want to move up to IndyLights next year, which, if that happens, again, will be battling. And that's not to say that there's not other people like that as well. There's Artem Petrov, Reese Gold's been quick this year. There's a lot of quick guys. And the more you move up, the more of them there are. So IndyLights is going to be guys who are in their second and third year, who will be obviously very experienced, who I haven't raced before. But, I like to think the cream rises to the top always. So for me, I've been lucky that everything I've raced in, I've won and competed for the championship for. So for sure, there's one goal in IndyLights, and it's to win. If I can get that opportunity to get there next year. But, it's all good and well saying that, but the results do the talking. So for me, it's been great the second half of the year to obviously, like you said, I'm racing the same guys I have the last couple of years, those two guys in particular, if you look at the championship. But for me, I'd kind of just put that out of my head really and just try and focus on what I can control, which if I do a good job of that, leads to race wins, which makes my life kind of easier in a lot of ways.
For you also, just before we let you go, because I know, you're extremely busy. This year, you've got another couple of Kiwis in USF 2000 with Billy Fraser and Vodonovich, and then obviously McLaughlin in the big car now as well. Have you had the chance to catch up with any of those guys at all, seeing as you kind of all come from this part of the world?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because for a long time, for the first 2 years I raced in the road to Indy, it's been just me, so it's been cool that I've caught up with Scott a few times, Scott Dixon, and he's been a great help in a few areas. Obviously, he's extremely busy, so it's not like you can kind of just be calling him up every day and just chewing the fat. But in a few areas, he's been really helpful and really generous for me, which is going to be, I'll always appreciate, especially a guy in his position. And, you look at Scotty McLaughlin, who I've known for a long, long time now in IndyCar as well. And then Billy Fraser and Peter in USF. It's really cool to see, because it's a lot more people from, I guess, my side of the world. And, I know what it's like for Peter and Billy coming over and having to learn all the new tracks. Everything's so different. There's rolling starts. People race way harder than they do back at home. So there's a lot of new things, oval racing, for example. There's all these new things that you have to learn. And if you want to be up the front winning races, you have to learn very fast. So obviously they have a great team around them, each of them in their own program, which obviously they'll be working with. And it's funny because the two guys that I'm competing for on the championship are both those two guys' teammates in Indy Pro 2000, obviously. So it's not like I can go walking in the transporter all good. But wherever I could have helped those two guys, if they ever had any questions, I'd like to think I have. And it's really good to see them both, improving a lot. I know Billy's had a few top fives, which is, I can tell you it's very difficult to do. And obviously Peter's snagged a few top tens and is constantly improving as well. So it's great, to be honest. I'd like to see more, or as much as possible anyway, drivers coming through the road to Indy if they do want to go to IndyCar, obviously. And I'd like to think maybe I kind of showed that and paved the way a little bit. Maybe people saw some success that I have and wanted to replicate that, or whatever it is. Obviously, we all want to follow in Scott Dixon's footsteps, but there was kind of no one in that journey or paving the way. So I'd like to think maybe I was that guy. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But for sure, if I can, anyone that is from New Zealand or whatever who is wondering about it or ever has any questions, ask me or whatever, wants advice or anything, I'm an open book and I'd love to help out. So I've had a lot of people, and I've been lucky to have guys who are kind of in my seniority or whatever you want to call it, and guys who I've looked up to and are kind of ahead of me in their journey throughout my whole life, who have helped me a lot. And I've looked up to them and they've gave me some great advice, which I still use today. So if I could do that for someone, it'd be really cool. And I think it's kind of definitely what goes around comes around kind of thing.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I won't hold you up now, but you were a graduate of the Elite Motorsport Academy. As you know, I'm a trustee of that. We make no qualms about that. I'm even wearing the shirt today. And Billy and Peter come out of that as well. So it's a testament to maybe something that we've done to help out as well. But you guys, you deliver, and you're certainly delivering. And last weekend was a great example of that. And there was many people down here that were supporting you. And I know at times you don't necessarily get feedback directly back to you, but Hunter McElrea, you're very much on the radar. You're on the radar of a lot of people. And again, I'm going to say this to people: if he's not on your radar, he needs to be on your radar. This guy needs to get to IndyLights next year, and we need to collectively support him and get another Kiwi into IndyCar in the long term as well. And Hunter McElrea right now is the guy to do it. So Hunter, on behalf of everyone here in New Zealand and the people across the ditch in Australia, because I know that's where your family is as well, and I know your dad's probably going to email me and say, not bad. We wish you all the very best for this last round of the Indy Pro. No matter what the outcome is, be very proud of what you've achieved. We're very, very proud of you, and continue to live this journey, and you're going to get there, okay?
Thank you very much, mate. It's a pleasure to know you, and I always appreciate the support that I get from you and everyone else, obviously from home. And, I, like you said, to touch on really quick, to come through the academy was super cool for me. And, at the time of my career, I was 16 years old, 5 years ago now, which is kind of funny because it doesn't feel that long ago. But I learned a lot of things there, and it was, at the time especially, a very big deal for me to come through that. So yeah, thank you for all that help back then as well. And like you said, like you touched on, I really appreciate all the support that I'm getting. And yeah, it's always great to chat to you.
You're welcome. And we did actually, me and Alistair Wooten, who you know very well, we were in the van this year with this 8 intake from this year. And we had a special moment where we said, what's missing in the van is the old Hunter McElrea sing-along session. And it wasn't the... We've got a lot to aspire to into van management, we'll call it. But Hunter, once again, thanks for joining us on Racing World. We wish you all the very best going into that last round of the series, and we'll catch up with you again after that as well.
Sounds great, DT. Thank you for having me on.
Well, great words there from Hunter, and we certainly wish him all the best, and we hope that not only does he do well in the remaining round of the Indy Pro Series, but also that ambition to be in IndyLights next year. And as I said, I make no unbiased opinion on this, but isn't it fantastic that these kids can strive for this career goal? Road to Indy Series provides that for him, and with a bit of luck, we'll see Hunter McElrea in an IndyLights car next year. And for any New Zealander or Australian that knows Hunter, they know how much it means to him. And I urge you to support Hunter in his journey and quest to get to IndyLights, because it's a fantastic thing indeed. So we very much welcome you and thank you for that. And I'm sure Hunter would as well. So it'll be great to see. He's still obviously got one round to go. There's a lot of IndyCar news that's just come out of the woodwork today as well. Callum Ilott, former Ferrari Academy test driver, will drive for Junkos Hollinger Racing at the next IndyCar event, so that'll be interesting to see how he goes. Junkos had already said that they were going to trial 3 drivers across the remaining 3 rounds, so we'll see whether Ilott will do more than one event with them, or maybe it's a thing for the future, but it's certainly an interesting transition for him coming from Europe back into IndyCar, so that's the first part of that. Charlie Kimball will be back in IndyCar as well for the final race at Long Beach aboard the AJ Foyt entry, so Charlie missing out during the bump day policy at Indy this year. Didn't make the 500 for the first time in his career, so it was a shame not to see him there. So it'd be good to see Charlie back behind the car at Long Beach for the season final. So there's still plenty happening. And of course, next week we'll be back with Bob again to talk about the Dutch Grand Prix. That's looking amazing. And of course, the announcement of the retirement of Kimi Räikkönen and the ever-posing question, will Valtteri Bottas stay at Mercedes next year, or will it be George Russell? But until then, thanks for watching Racing World. We really do appreciate it. Thanks for supporting Hunter McElrea as well. And we'll catch you again next week.